Hello, welcome to the Invest in Yourself seminar series presented by the Brass Tree. This seminar, the title is Growing Your Career. Is the consulting profession a fit for you? This is session 1 of a 9-session course. My name is Don Wynn. I'll be the presenter for the entire course. Before becoming a consultant, I had 20 years in industry. During that period of time, I did a lot of things that prepared me to become a consultant without consciously doing that. I didn't plan to become a consultant. I was lucky, and that luck has caused me to have a satisfying career and better than average income. So most of the things that have happened to me in my life, as far as consulting goes, is because I got lucky when I joined the profession. As I said, one of the objectives of this course is to help you do career planning so that you can make a conscious decision to enter this profession and what you would do to prepare yourself to be successful. Once I became a consultant, I've worked in a variety of places. I've had a tremendous amount of variety, and I spent 25 years continuously working as a consultant. So most of the things that we're going to talk about are from my own personal experience, things I've done, things I've seen, probably talk some about mistakes I've made, but it will be the straight up honest truth as far as I can present it. During the presentations, I'll give you some information that's taken directly from my own personal career. I would think of these slides as being sidebar slides. They add texture to what we're talking about, and it is not necessarily a guideline about how to do something. It just gives you a little bit more insight into how things worked for me. I thought it would be helpful maybe to describe my entry into consulting. I didn't plan to be a consultant. It never even occurred to me to think about consulting. I just got lucky. As I said before, it just happened. The way that I got lucky was that through my working lifetime before being a consultant, I was doing things that prepared me to become a consultant. I learned how to do public speaking. I joined Toastmasters, and I did quite a bit of public speaking, and that helped me. I joined a professional society, and I got certified in that society, and that certification helped me. I completed my formal education, undergraduate degree and a master's degree, and that helped me, although those things are not necessarily required, and we're going to talk about that later too. The second way that I got lucky was that I had an acquaintance that had gotten a job at a consulting company and had a personal issue that meant that he could not take the job after all. After he'd already interviewed, after he'd talked to the hiring people at that company and accepted a job, something happened and he had to back out of that commitment. So they asked if he knew anyone that he could recommend to take his place, and he called me and asked me if he could give them my name, and I said, I've never thought about consulting, but sure, I'll talk to these guys. And from that, I got an interview and I got hired as a entry-level consultant in the middle of my career. That's pretty significant too, and we'll talk more about all the different entry points. Finally, I was lucky because I was suited for the challenges that consulting presents. Consulting is not an easy profession, and a lot of people join the profession and are not well suited, and it causes issues for them. Luckily, my personal traits and attributes fit the challenges that you see in consulting. So those are the 3 primary ways that I was lucky. In this presentation, we're going to talk about all the information about consulting so that you can prepare for it and you can make a conscious decision before even attempting to get in a profession about whether or not you're suited for it. So that's my particular story, and I wish I had done career planning before becoming a consultant, but I just got lucky. I know that you guys probably think I'm pretty cosmopolitan based on my accent. You probably think I'm from downtown New York City, but I'm not. I'm from the rural, small town South. And my consulting has allowed me to travel to places I never would have imagined possible in my lifetime. I've been able to see things and go places and experience things that I wouldn't have been able to do had I not become a consultant. You can see that in my 25 years or so, I've worked all over the U.S. I've even worked in Montreal, Canada. That was a single presentation, but I did work there. But I've worked in many of these places for an extended periods of time. Some were warm, pleasant places. Some were colder, not as pleasant. But people have always been nice, and I've enjoyed the work and the variety and the travel that associates with the work I've done. So this is an example of the cities that I've worked in the U.S. Many of my projects have been a year. Some have been even up to 2 years. So it really gives you an opportunity to kind of get immersed in the local area and to learn a little bit rather than just to fly into an airport and fly back out. I have also had the opportunity to work outside the U.S. on several projects. The four cities located on the left that are grouped together on the left side of the screen are all in Colombia, South America. Colombia is a beautiful country, and it was a great opportunity for me to be able to work there. I worked in Colombia off and on for about a year. I would be in Colombia for 5 weeks in a row, come home for a while, and go back for 5 weeks. So that was the work schedule in Colombia. In Colombia, I worked at a coal mine. The single city that's located to the right is in Trinidad. Trinidad and Tobago. It's an island just off Venezuela. It's an oil-rich island. I worked there for the Trinidad and Tobago telephone system. When I worked in Trinidad, I would fly to Port of Spain every week, and I would fly home every week. So that was a weekly commute back and forth to Trinidad. But here's the real treasure. I spent a year working in Sydney, Australia. Now that was a trip to Sydney and work for 6 months, come home, go back to Sydney, work for 6 more months. Australia is a beautiful country. I expect and plan to go back there as a visitor at some point. I have great friends that I made there, but I really enjoyed the work that I did in Sydney, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to see Australia in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do had I not become a consultant. Your career as far as travel goes might not be like mine. It might be even grander. But the travel aspects of my career have been pretty grand, and I would not have had those travel experiences had I not become a consultant. I have worked for both large and small consulting companies, and the size of the consulting company changes the atmosphere and also the positive things about the environment. There are things that are positive about large companies that small companies cannot provide, and there are also things about small companies that larger companies cannot provide. And we'll talk about that in more detail as we move forward. I worked as an independent consultant. Now, right now, that doesn't mean very much to you because we haven't talked about the models of consulting, But an independent consultant means that you really are self-employed. And I've worked in that role several times during my consulting career. My resume will be featured in session 6. Not that my resume is anything special. I think it's solid and it reflects what I've done, but it's also will give you an idea of how your resume will build over time and how you might enter the profession. I'll give you some resume tips and some ideas about how to enter the profession. That's in session 6. Before getting started into the material, I need to make sure that you have a clear understanding of what the consulting profession consists of. What industries does the course cover? Well, my experience is in electronic manufacturing, and my career consulting has been in software implementation and process reengineering of software systems. But that doesn't mean that the course only covers high-tech consulting. It covers any sort of consulting where you do a consulting service or a contracting service for a client. So this material that we're going to cover should be applicable to either area. So if you're thinking about consulting and you're not in a technology field, don't let that be a distraction to you, because the material will cover both. Will cover all phases of consulting. We want to assist attendees in their career planning. People who may be thinking about a career in consulting and need more information to make an informed decision. We want to assist attendees in their career planning. People who may be thinking about a career in consulting and need more information to make an informed decision. Our detailed objectives for the course, it's based on conversations I've had with people at virtually every client site where I have worked during my working lifetime. Once I've been there for a little while and the employees at the client site have gotten to know me and we develop a relationship, then they have enough faith in me that they can ask these questions. So what they do is they start asking questions about consulting. And I've helped many, many people by giving that sort of information. Sometimes people have become consultants without knowing, without being fully informed, and they burn out. They find out that they're not well suited for this work, and for either professional reasons or personal reasons, they can't endure the challenges that the profession includes. So I want to inform you about the consulting industry. I want to describe the work of a consultant. What exactly does a consultant do? When I use the term consultant, I'm really thinking of two different things in a way. A consultant is one type of work, and a contractor is a slightly different type of work. During my working lifetime, I've served as a consultant, but I've also served as a contractor. Now, for this course, I consider them to be virtually the same, but there is a real important distinction, and I want to talk to you about that. And we'll talk about that in the consulting models session, which is number 4. I want to describe the lifestyle of a consultant. Consultants don't lead normal lifestyles. There's burdens on your personal life. There's tremendous benefit on your personal life. But it's important that you understand the positives of consulting as it relates to personal life, as well as the negatives of consulting as it relates to personal life. That'll be in session number 7. I want to help attendees assess your own suitability to become a consultant. If you have the right attributes, consulting is a tremendous career. It has great income, lots of travel. It has a lot of satisfaction. But all of those things only happen if you have the attributes and the background in order to do that work. So during this seminar, we're going to talk about what's required to be a consultant. And that's going to be session number 3. It'll help you determine whether you have what it takes to be a consultant. A lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. And it would be better not to move into this profession unless you're well suited for it. I want to help you identify the entry points. Once you determine that you're suitable, that it's a profession that you want to investigate further, I will help identify the entry points into the profession. The entry points depend to a degree on the model of consulting that you work under, and there's a lot of different entry points. And it does not have to be at the beginning of your working career. As I told you earlier, I became a consultant mid-career. So if you're considering a career change and you're mid-career, then you definitely have the possibility to become a consultant. You would not be excluded. At the same time, if you're just now entering the workforce, you could have a consulting career from the very beginning all the way through the end of your working lifetime. So there's all different ways and points in your career in which to enter this profession. And I'm going to help you identify what those are and how to take advantage of them for your own career growth. Having said all that, I want to make it clear that I have no desire to help people who are not qualified to become consultants. There are people in consulting that I've met that most clients have encountered at one point or another who simply cannot do the work. If you can't do the work, I don't want to help you become a consultant. It is a hard, demanding profession. And if you have the right stuff, then you can do a good job and have career growth. But if you can't do a good job, then you bring negative comments from clients about the entire profession, and I don't want to have anything to do with causing people not qualified to become consultants. Common questions. When I have these sessions and employees of client companies come to me and ask questions, they're all really pretty common questions. And the seminar is planned to answer those questions and other questions that may come up during the conduct of the seminar. Question I hear most often, what's it like being a consultant? Well, that really is going to be covered throughout the seminar. Every session is going to talk about what it's like being a consultant. That's such a broad question that it would take quite a bit of time to answer that. But after the seminar, you're going to have a much better idea of exactly what it is, what it's like, what the experience is for a consultant to work in this profession. How much money do consultants make? Well, most employees of consulting clients realize that consultants make more than they do. In some cases, substantially more. When we get to the financial session, which is number 5, we're going to talk about the income, but also expenses and financial pressure there is on consultants. And in that session, I'm going to tell you the details of my income over my working lifetime. So these will be real numbers. It'll be what my income has been, and it'll show the progression of what my income has been over over my consulting career. Do you think I would make a good consultant? That goes back to that aptitude. And I think everybody would have this question before they go into this work. I know I had that question. It has a lot to do with confidence. You have to be confident of your own work skills in order to do this work. You can't be hesitant. You also have to understand the limitations that you might have. Everyone has limitations. Just because you're a consultant doesn't mean that you have to give an answer. If you're asked a question and you don't know the answer, you have to have the ability within yourself to say, I don't know the answer to that. That's a hard thing to do if you're a consultant, but it's something that's very important. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about the requirements in session 3. As you assess yourself, when we talk about the assessment in the requirements section, you should be able to determine whether or not you would make a good consultant or not. It's not for me to decide that, it's for you to decide. How do I enter the profession? I've told you that we're going to talk about entry points. We're going to talk about the different models and several different sessions. That's going to be a constant throughout the entire course. The idea is that to find out what consulting is, to determine your own suitability, and then if you make a decision to become a consultant, how exactly do you do that? So we're going to answer that question in some detail. It's understandable that there would be additional questions during the sessions, during all of the entire course. And as I receive those questions, I'm going to add them in session 9 so that everyone will have the benefit of seeing questions that other people have asked without identifying anyone. But if there are questions that come up, I'm going to add them, and we're going to talk about those in session 9. The entire course is a recorded course. So we will go through all the 8 sessions, and after that, the 8th session is finished, I'll add the questions I've received into session 9, and we'll discuss those as I'll answer those as a separate session. The course outline. I've been talking about the different sessions and what we're going to talk about. Here's the course outline. We've just done the introduction. The introduction is free. I hope you've gained something from it. I hope you believe that there would be value in the balance of the sessions for you. The remaining sessions are conducted for a fee. There's a single fee for all sessions. The sessions don't necessarily have to be done in the order that they're listed here in the outline, and they will all be available at the same time. So you could take the remaining sessions in the order that fits you. Each session should be about 45 minutes and should give you insights into consulting and all the things we've talked about so far. Incidentally, I should mention here that throughout the course of these sessions, I will be taking your phone calls for personal consultation. If you have questions, I'll take your phone calls and answer them on a one-to-one basis. You can also send me email, and my telephone number and email address are listed at in the last slide of this introductory session. Session 2 is the pros and cons. It's so easy for someone who is not a consultant to see the benefits. There's income benefit. There's tremendous income benefit for most consultants. You have a certain amount of independence that you might not have as an employee. The benefits depend to some degree on the model that you work under, and we're going to be talking about those too. But there's some general pros and there's some general cons. It's not as easy to see the negative things of consulting, but a lot of people join consulting. They can deal with the negatives only for a couple of years, and then they get out of consulting. It would be much better for them if they'd never gone into consulting to start with, and they might not have done that if they understood what the negatives are. So we're going to talk about the negatives. We'll highlight the pros, but we'll talk about the negatives. What is required? Well, required is really a broad term too. You will see all sorts of references to this is required or that's required. Very few things are really required. The things that are required, in my view, there are two things that are required. You have to have the aptitude to do this sort of work, and that's pretty broad too, but you have to have the aptitude, the mental abilities to do this kind of work, and you have to have mastered some skill that's of value to clients. Consulting means that you have expert level skills, and you have to have outstanding skills that your clients are willing to pay you for. So those two things are required: aptitude and skill, specific skill. Other things that are listed as required quite a bit, but that are not necessarily required, is advanced education, professional affiliation, practical experience. There's a number of different things that are required in a broadest sense, but are not necessarily required for every assignment you might go to. And we're going to talk about what is required, what is optional. And if you don't have the things that I am describing as optional, if you don't have those things, it's how you present yourself in the best possible light so that a client would select you among the people that are available to do that work. So you have to present yourself in the best possible light. So you build on your strengths, downplay your weaknesses, and work in consulting. Well, exactly how important is a degree anyway? Prospective clients and prospective employers always ask for degrees and sometimes advanced degrees. So just how important are those? Well, in my experience, it's not a firm requirement, and it's not even an absolute necessity for success. You could be a successful consultant without having an advanced degree, without having a degree at all, or having a degree in a field other than your field that you're directly consulting in. I work in technology consulting, and some of the people I work with have a Bachelor of Arts degree in art history, or a Bachelor of Science in psychology, or something that's not directly a technology related degree. So those people are very successful. So based on my experience, I would say a degree or the degree that's being requested is not an absolute necessity. So what is required? It goes back to the idea that you have to have aptitude for the work you're doing. You have to have advanced skills. Those things are absolute requirements to be successful. And if you don't have those, then you're not a very good candidate for consulting. So what exactly do degrees do? If you have a degree, it allows you to open the door, usually for your first consulting job. It helps you become an employee of a consulting company. So let's say that they say we want a degree in information technology. If your degree is in Bachelor of Arts, that alone shouldn't prevent you from making application to that company. You have to present yourself in the best possible light that you can. And if you have the aptitude and you have the skills that are necessary, the degree helps you open the door the first time. So The degree is important when you have never had a consulting job before. So if you're trying to enter the profession, it may mean that if you don't have a degree, that you have to knock on more doors in order to get entry into the profession initially. Okay, so how important is a degree after you get into the profession? Well, in my experience, the importance of that degree kind of goes down from one assignment to the next. So if you're on a consulting assignment and you're looking for your follow-on consulting assignment, it's going to be more important that you've been successful in the most recent work you've done. So the focus is on the most recent. So let's say that you get in the profession, you don't have a degree. When you go to your second client, it's going to be mentioned, but the focus is going to be on what have you done lately. When you go to your third client, the importance of the degree tends to go down over time. So the only reason I bring this up is because I don't want you to be overly discouraged by if you don't happen to have a degree. You still have to have aptitude and advanced skills that are necessary. And the degree opens the door for you. But don't let that be the constraint that would keep you from being a consultant. Consulting models. There are 6 consulting models, and each model has unique pros for that particular model and unique constraints or negative things, if you'd call it that, challenges in each model. And you can work in consulting and you can assume quite a bit of risk. If you assume quite a bit of risk, then your income goes up and you're working in a particular consulting model. There are other models where you don't assume the same degree of financial risk, but your income is lower. And the challenges and the requirements to enter each level is slightly different. And we're going to talk about what those consulting models are and what the pros and cons of each, what the entry points of each are. So that should be a very informative session, I would think. Consulting models are really, really important in this profession because so many things depend upon the exact type of consulting, exactly the model that you're working under. We're going to have an entire session that talks about consulting models. And I only want to bring it up here because so many different things that we'll talk about depend on the model. There are 6 consulting models. Company staff means that you're an internal consultant for a large, most likely international company, and you travel around and you work within the different divisions of that single company. So you're a consultant of a sort, but all of your work is for a single company and you're an employee. A consulting company staff means that you're an employee of a consulting company, but you're an employee and you go from client to client. The client's the company's client. You go from client to client and do the work that's required. All the remaining models are for people who are independent. What that means, and we'll talk about it in a lot more detail in the session on consulting models, but an independent is someone who is not an employee. What you're really, if you're an independent, you're really in business for yourself. You're a company. And the fact that you are a company and you're not an employee changes the risk that you have to work in that model, but it also increases the return as long as you stay employed. So there's a lot of trade-offs associated with the next levels. And then finally, model 6, it's when an independent consultant begins to work like a small consulting company. It's sort of an evolutionary period from being in model 2, where you're an employee of a consulting company. In model 5, you're the owner of a consulting company. So though that's the consulting models in a nutshell. So you have a rough idea of what these are, but they'll be covered in more detail in the session that covers consulting models. Session 5, financial considerations. It's so easy for people to speculate about income. Consulting income is very strong, but there's also some expenses associated with being a consultant and some financial risk that most people who are not a consultant would never think of unless someone explains it to them. So in session 5, we're going to talk about financial considerations. And in session 5, I mentioned before that I'm going to disclose my own personal income during the time I've been a consultant. I have had better than average income, and I would expect that you would be able to have that too if you have the aptitude and all the things required to be a successful consultant. Session 6 is more about entering the profession. If you fit, if you have the right attributes, if you would make a good consultant, then I want to help you enter this profession. It opens up so much in life. It has given me opportunities to do things and go places that I would not have been able to do had I not become a consultant. So I want to help you make that transition. As I said before, my transition into consulting was pure luck, but your transition into consulting could be a conscious, methodical choice to enter this profession and make it your life's work. Session 7 is work life as a consultant. What does a consultant do every day? A consultant does a lot of different things and has to have the ability to have flexibility in what you do. The broader flexibility that you have, the more flexibility that you have, the broader your job, your prospective client base is. So you need to work on having a broad capabilities. And I will describe the work life of a consultant. Session 8 is what do you do before you join a client? What do you do as you're preparing to leave a client? And what do you do in the time between clients? The consultant, an average consultant, spends some amount of time between clients, effectively unemployed. What do you do during those times? And in session 8, we're going to talk about that. You have to be productive and build your career even when you're not at a client site. Session 9 is going to be the course recap and questions. I will answer questions directly one-on-one with phone calls and with emails. This is just to share the questions that have been received throughout the course with everyone in a formal session. Session 9 is going to be the course recap and questions. I will answer questions directly one-on-one with phone calls and with emails. This is just to share the questions that have been received throughout the course with everyone in a formal session. So what do we do now? Well, you have a decision to make. And the first decision is whether or not you want to get more detail about the consulting profession. If you want to know how to join the profession, what the entry points are, what's required, all the things that we've discussed in this introductory seminar. So let's begin growing your career together. I can help you if you give me that opportunity. Thank you very much for attending this, and I hope you decide to participate in the larger full seminar. Thank you very much. As I promised, here is my contact information. If you continue in the seminar, then I will answer your email questions and I will answer your phone call and give you one-on-one input answers to your questions.